Hello everyone. Do you remember how recently we talked about how likely it is that the series The Witcher will be cancelled after the 5th season? It's even more uncertain now. Will this season even appear? Ratings and viewership are declining, especially after the departure of Henry Cavill. Meanwhile, production costs are rising. In fact, the continuation of this saga has probably become unprofitable for Netflix. Just as we were discussing this, news broke that talented people had decided to neglect everything. They are already starting work, attention, not on the 4th, but on the 5th season of The Witcher. It seems that the 4th season has not received any feedback from viewers. Not understanding how the 4th season will be perceived by the public, how people will perceive the new Geralt, and so on, it turns out that Netflix, in fact, began work on the 4th and 5th seasons at the same time. That says a lot. Oh, and by the way, we've just received official confirmation of how the creators of The Witcher plan to explain the replacement of the main character. This turnaround, I'm sure, took many by surprise. In any case, there is something to discuss. Let's start right now, starting with the news about the start of work on the 5th season of The Witcher. Personally, it made a strong impression on me, although rather in a negative sense. So, according to RAN Intelligence, work on the 5th season of The Witcher is already underway ahead of filming. The 4th season of the series is in pre-production, scheduled for release in March this year at the Cross Studio in the UK. Interestingly, while the first of the 2 upcoming seasons is being prepared for filming, the second, 5th season, is also in development. The fate of this supposedly final season of The Witcher has taken an interesting turn. Originally planned in the fall of 2022 as part of Netflix's strategy to release the 4th and 5th seasons in a row, by the beginning of the strikes of writers and actors in May 2023, there was already an overall plan for the 5th season, and the 4th season was mostly written. Then, after the strikes ended a few months later, work on the script resumed to finish the 4th season. Now, after a winter break, the Witcher team has finally started writing scripts for the 5th season. The plan to film the 4th and 5th seasons simultaneously still seems feasible. Writing each season usually takes about 6 months, then it takes some time to finalize the script. And filming of the 4th season of The Witcher is expected to last until October this year. By then, the 5th season will most likely be ready in terms of the storyline. Thus, it is quite possible that the work will continue until the end. And here's the most interesting thing. It turns out that after a very short break for the cast and crew, they will move on to the next season, filming of which will begin either in late 2024 or early 2025. It is clear that none of these dates will allow the 4th season to appear in front of the audience. In fact, The Witcher's team will work blindly, without receiving any feedback at all. Why does it matter? Well, let's look at what happened to Amazon's Power Rings. There too, the showrunners and the whole team were so confident that they started working on the 2nd season even before the first one was shown to the public. And when the series finally aired, it turned out to be terrible, and people didn't appreciate the showrunners' approach. The writers of The Rings of Jedi Power, Jedi Payne and Patrick McKay, shrugged their shoulders and in fact said, "Well, what can we do? We have already written the script for the new season. We've made some cosmetic adjustments, but in general, let's leave it as it is." Needless to say, this approach is extremely harmful and destructive. And it seems that the creators of The Witcher decided to implement something similar, especially when their series underwent drastic changes, losing its main star. It seems to be important in such cases to get feedback from viewers and then try to adjust accordingly, but no one else seems to care. Thus, with this approach, it seems that they decided to make the 5th season the last and complete all their endeavors. So basically, there is no real effort to improve because it is clear that people will still be unhappy. So let's just hurry up, close this issue in one fell swoop, and don't worry anymore. By the way, as for the fact that Netflix is changing its strategy regarding The Witcher and plans to reduce the number of seasons from 7 or 8 to 5, earlier RAN Intelligence, which provides accurate and verified information, informed us that Netflix obviously recognized and seemed to accept the failure of its flagship fantasy project. This recognition was caused not only by the fact that the 5th season is likely to be the last, but also by the fact that Netflix began to look for a new fantasy leader, namely an adaptation of the Baldur's Gate series of games. All these news taken together earlier clearly indicated that the streamer had to accept the harsh reality and accept that their dreams of The Witcher no longer make sense. To be honest, it would be the right decision to stop working on the new season altogether, but I think the selfishness of the Netflix bosses played a role. To stop everything now would be to admit a complete failure. that they couldn't even finish their fantastic adaptation, and having lost the main star, they disgraced themselves and abandoned everything halfway. It is clear that from a financial point of view, this step would be logical, but from a reputation point of view, this is a serious blow to Netflix. So yes, they will put on a brave face, drag on for 2 more seasons, trying to save the project. But the fact that all this is done quickly, without even waiting for the release of the next season, only confirms the information about the cancellation of the series. Now let's smoothly move on to how, no matter what, Netflix and the creators of The Witcher plan to explain the change of the main actor, because closure is closure, and they have at least 2 more seasons ahead of them. Well, we already have the answer here, but first let me remind you that Henry Cavill recently appeared in the amazing trailer for the upcoming Guy Ritchie movie, which of course is already on our Telegram channel. Be sure to watch it and subscribe if you haven't already. So the question of replacing Henry Cavill with Liam Hemsworth is certainly more than intriguing. Let me remind you that earlier Tomasz Baginski, one of the producers of The Witcher, warned us about some spoilers from the books. Now let's listen to Baginski's direct speech. Many readers forget what Andrzej Sapkowski did in the 5th volume of the saga. I am not talking about specific events, but about the narrative structure presented in this book. Suddenly, at the beginning of the book, we find out that everything we've read so far might not be true, Baginski says. He seems to be pointing out how the authors of The Witcher will change Geralt when Baginski mentions Sapkowski's great revolution in the 5th novel, The Lady of the Lake. According to him, there are several passages of action that take place 100 years after the completion of the story of Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer. By that time, the tale of The Witcher had become a legend, and like many legends, this story spread throughout the country with numerous interpretations. 20 years ago, when the 5th book was published, people were very disappointed. Everything was turned upside down, and suddenly it turned into some kind of postmodern game with form. It turned out that we could jump back and forth in this narrative, change the context of what was happening, and so on. I can see what's going on among the fans right now, and how harshly they interpret The Witcher. But the truth is that interpretations can vary greatly. I believe that what was planned for the 4th season is consistent with the books, but I can interpret it differently than someone who cannot accept the change in Geralt's face. I really like the idea of opening the 4th season, but will the audience like it? We'll see. In short, for those who are tired of the verbosity of the producer of The Witcher, he apparently means, when talking about their decision regarding Geralt in the 4th season, that by the new season, it may turn out that the whole story, as we originally saw it, was presented and interpreted a little incorrectly or inaccurately, or that some elements of the events, even the appearance of some characters, were conveyed incorrectly. And now we have received direct confirmation of this. As we found out, thanks to the audition tape, a new scene from the 4th season of The Witcher has appeared with the participation of a young girl and a wandering narrator. We know for sure that this old man is a druid who was an old wandering storyteller, and the girl is a young girl who was most interested in his centuries-old stories about a certain witcher and sorceress known as the Lady of the Lake. She lived more than 100 years after the main events. As we know, she played a role in the subsequent history. But most importantly, she seemed to look at all this from the outside through the prism of her vision and through the prism of the past tense. So obviously in the 4th season, its creators decided to show through the Lady of the Lake that the initial view of things, including what the White Wolf actually looked like, was inaccurate or wrong. And now we'll see how it really looked and was. In general, as Baginski said earlier, but now we know everything for sure. Do you like this way out of the situation? And what do you think about it in general? You can already write in the comments, because that's all for today. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a thumbs up. Thank you all for watching, but goodbye for now.